Welcome to the Kings Beat podcast. I am James Ham, Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. Joining me, Box 40, Sean Cunningham. Sean, how are you?
I am present and accounted for. I am happy. I am in a great mood because I have a day off for the most part. This is basically my only responsibility, and it's been the first time in a pretty long time. But no one cry for me. I'm doing just fine. How are you guys?
Don't nobody cry for Sean.
No.
All right, and of course, also joining us, Brenden Nunes from the Kings Pulse podcast. Brenden, how are you?
I am doing well. Got to watch some defense yesterday for the first time all year, maybe.
Yeah,
So it was fun.
defense.
It was fun.
Defense. We didn't know that would happen. Not only did we not know that the Sacramento Kings would start their first round playoff series against the Golden State Warriors with a 2-0 advantage, we didn't realize they would actually play defense. So where are you guys at? This is incredible. We're actually watching a Kings team respond and jump into a playoff series with 2 feet, and they don't look timid. They don't look shy. They don't look like they are the team that lacks experience. They look like the team that is ready to roll and ready to beat somebody up, figuratively, not literally, because one team looks like they want to beat somebody up, literally. Let's start with Sean. Sean, the Kings are 2-0. Just like, where are you just shocked? Are you stunned by what is happening?
Well,
Go
ahead.
We're going to cover both games and jump in and kind of go back and forth here, but let's just get your general, what in the world is happening?
Well, before we get to that, I think you should tell people where they can like and subscribe and do all the business first. Because I am in such a just refreshed, ready to roll mood that I don't want to be interrupted, man. I want to touch on E40. I want to touch on Jason Williams, who I caught up with. I want to touch on just Sacramento being playoff ready. But I just can't until you tell people what the hell to do.
Okay. If you're watching on YouTube here, hit the thumbs up if you don't mind. And if you are not a subscriber here on the Kings Beat YouTube channel, subscribe for us. If you're listening somewhere else, make sure to give us a rating and review if you don't mind. All of those things help. Also, jump on board with the Kings Beat. Go to thekingsbeat.com, become a premium subscriber to the Kings Beat, and you get invites to things like the happy hours and all that. We are working on guests and stuff for upcoming events, but let's be honest, we're all overwhelmed with playoff coverage at this point, and our focus is there and not on other things. All right, that was it. I think that's all we got.
Check. Big box checked.
It's not raining outside, so Sean doesn't have to get angry and pissed about that. So let's get to it. We'll get to all the crazy stuff, but let's just get the overall, I can't believe this is happening at this moment type feel. The reaction to just, what has been an incredible couple of days.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, before we even jump into, Sacramento playoff ready. I mean, these fans, just the way Doko looks outside, the way the arena has been an incredible atmosphere. Just looks like NBA playoffs looks good on you, Sacramento, and I think for the most part everything has just looked incredible in this city. And you see the civic pride and everyone getting behind the team. You got purple everywhere, and everyone's putting up beams. And you've seen a lot of that throughout the season, but it's really reaching a peak level. And you talk about Jurassic Park in Toronto, and they've got this area where they watch the team. Sacramento's we got 4 of those areas now. It's you've got people who can gather on L Street and watch off of the board, the video boards off of the garage on L Street across from the arena. You've got Ali Yousefi Square, where the skating rink usually is, at K Street and 7th and David J. Stern Walk. And, and then the Doko, just if you're in there hours beforehand, just insane. And the weather is finally fantastic. And it could be a little warmer though, but it's just the pride in this town looks phenomenal. And I'm gonna say it right away: very little Warrior fans in game one, a little bit more in game two, but overwhelmingly, I mean, it's like even in game two where there was a little bit more, hardly any. I mean, it's not really a factor. Little curious as to why that might be. I didn't expect that. That might be the biggest surprise. And then you get into where the series stands, 2-0 heading into game three, going to San Francisco. And look, we talked about it, guys. Like the Warriors have experienced everything that you can name in a playoff scenario. Except this.
Except this.
We found it. We unlocked it, and I didn't expect it. I thought it would be I thought the Kings would win game one. They did. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back because I was wrong about thinking it would be 1-1 heading to Chase Center, and I think a lot of people probably thought the same. And the other thing I didn't count on was the Warriors to look like the ones that are frazzled heading to Chase Center. So, Kings in their head a little bit. You got some big topics we can digest here and kick around and spout off about, and I'm gonna. But overall, man, 2-0 to say I'm surprised is I'm not really surprised. This team, this Kings team just continues to do what they've done. I'm a little surprised at the poise and the composure that they've shown when moments tend to escalate or heat up or have those playoff moments, if you will. But that's probably surprises me more than them being 2-0. But I will say this. I had a belief that the Warriors, even if they were down 2-0 heading into San Francisco in game 3 on Thursday, that they would be every bit as confident as if they were stepping into game 1 with the series 0-0. I don't know that I believe that now.
Brenden, let's hear your first thoughts.
That Sacramento looked prepared for playoff basketball. And I don't know how much that could be expected with the lack of postseason experience that this team has. I think that's credit to the coaching staff and the guys that have been there, that have been relaying messages kind of leading up to this, whether that be Harrison Barnes, Matthew Dellavedova, those guys. And I'm missing somebody, but obviously Mike
Leandro
Brown.
Barbosa.
Yeah, Mike Brown, Leandro Barbosa, and those guys speaking as well. I think has really had them prepared for the physicality. I think that there's been up and down moments when it's come to physicality and what that means on both ends of the floor, but particularly defensively for this Kings team throughout the course of this year. And they've been great there, man. And that goes for everybody. I think Keegan Murray is maybe the one guy that is still sort of getting used to that. And I think that's just sort of typical rookie stuff. But the physicality has been amazing, and it's taken care of all of the details. You know, I found myself getting a little caught up in more so saying the Warriors are playing bad and maybe not giving the Kings their credit, because I feel like the Warriors are like game one, they give up 17 offensive rebounds and Malik Monk gets to the free throw line 13 times. Game two, Golden State has 22 turnovers, and both teams started bad in the first half, 13 turnovers for Golden State, 12 for Sacramento. But then the second half, Sacramento makes their adjustment, only has 2, and Golden State still has 9, ends the game with 22. And they still allow, after the 17 offensive rebounds in game 1, 12 in game 2, like for the Kings to be the team, in my mind, that are more physical, playing at their own pace and taking care of all the little details is just not what I would have expected. And I think they've shown why they were the better team throughout the course of the regular season. And there's reason for optimism, but these have all been close games.
They have all been close games. Okay, so my first thoughts. Okay, I'm going to start with a slightly weird one that means very little to a lot of people that are out there, but I think that the Kings media relations staff and PR staff have done an incredible job. Like they have made adjustments when things were rocky in the beginning. They've grown throughout the season, but really in the last week when it's amplified and we're there every day and it's been crazy. I think the inside of the building, which you guys wouldn't know, they've made crazy adjustments in there. They've moved what is our standard like media room and work room. They had to gut that and make a press conference room for the Warriors. They built us another gigantic area down the hallway. I think everything behind the scenes for a group that hasn't done it before, many of like who has, and so that means you got to go find someone 16 years ago who did playoffs and bring them on board and kind of get the whole building ready. I just think they've been tremendous. And I think the pregame stuff has been amazing. The Lion going all the way up to the catwalk, which is like 100 and something feet up in game one, I thought was amazing. The tributes to the season. I just think that what they've done so far has been absolutely like top notch. So I'm going to start there. And then the basketball. The basketball has been super fun. And I didn't know what to expect. I've told everyone a million times, like, I didn't even want to make a prediction on who would win this series or not, because I don't even really care. I think this is about a group of players, a franchise experiencing something that they haven't done before, and a fan base experiencing something that they haven't done in almost 2 decades. And I think everyone has stepped up, and it's just been an absolute, like, brilliant first week to be involved, to be there, to feel the crowd noise, the angst, everything that comes with it. I think the game one, the moment where it was like inspiring and crazy and wild, was the national anthem, when people were so nervous and anxious that they started singing along with the national anthem. Like, the entire crowd is singing the national anthem, which I'd never seen before. I just think it's been really fun to sit back and watch, like, how this thing is developing organically, how people are doing their jobs, how everything seems to be like building towards something. So does that make sense? Oh, Sean is on mute.
Sorry, I had to hold a gun to your head to make sure you made a pick in the series.
You did. You had to hold a gun. And I still, like, I don't know if I was comfortable making that. I'd be a lot more comfortable making a pick today than I was then. But yeah, I mean, like, I think
and the anthem thing, by the way, how come they didn't do it in game 2? I was curious. Did I have to do with the singer being? Well, I'll say it. I mean, it was a little.
You
different.
don't like him.
No, I didn't say that. It's just stylistically a little different. Like, I think his name is Steve Pierce. He's been doing it for years.
20
he reminds me of the guy
years.
that, and he might be the guy, but he reminds me of the guy that sang the Folsom Lake Ford commercials back in the early 2000s, where it was like everything's a power ballad. So I don't know.
I was somewhere maybe like 6 months ago, and he was in the room. Like, I can't remember where it was, and I almost said something to him, but I didn't, because he sang the national anthem like so many times. Like, I know exactly what he does at the conclusion of his national anthem because we've seen him so many times. Yeah, I just think it's been like a really, really well done. Even something as small as like our parking situation, which had gotten like so ridiculous and crazy, where, you know, some of us are in the parking garage fighting for parking spaces for like 25 minutes and circling around and all that stuff. I think everything that they've done so far has been like, okay, you guys were ready. This was fun. You knew what was coming and you hit it. Brenden, what is, like, is there a moment that you've kind of felt like, oh, wow, this is not what I expected?
Probably the crowds. I mean, you know to expect them to be loud. Everybody's told me, you know, about Arco Thunder and explained stories and stuff, but I don't think there's anything that can have you fully prepared necessarily for exactly what that sounds like. And it's happening, you know, when the team is running out 15 minutes before the actual tip off, like, and it's continuing throughout the entire course of it. I think that it has a lot to do, obviously, with Sacramento just playing well. And there was never really moments where Golden State had a big lead and therefore the crowd kind of could become subdued. So I think that the team's play absolutely is a factor in that, but the crowd has just been phenomenal. And we did just get our first award announced.
Oh, it just happened?
It did.
All right. Yeah, so as we're just gonna, Brenden, go ahead. You go ahead and hit it.
De'Aaron Fox has been announced as the 2022-2023 NBA's Clutch Player of the Year award. And I don't think it's the most surprising thing to hear. The two other finalists were DeMar DeRozan and Jimmy Butler. But De'Aaron led the league in clutch points with 194. And of all the players that were top 10 in total clutch points, he led them in field goal percentage at 52%. 52% when you're putting up that many shots in the clutch, I think is phenomenal. And we've seen him just have countless big moments for this Sacramento team. And that is translating into the playoffs, but he gets some much deserved regular season appreciation.
Yeah, Sean, I mean, you had to expect this. I expected it, but I'm happy for him because this is a guy who has lived in obscurity for 6 years, and he's finally getting his flowers.
Well, and think about the year as a whole. You experience winning. You experience your first playoff game. You're up 2-0 in a series with the Warriors, who's been your kind of big brother because they've, just right down the road in the Bay Area there. And All-Star, you've got a baby. I mean, this is everything kind of comes to a crescendo for him. I mean, it's everything. I'm thrilled for him. He's definitely worthy of it. And yeah, man, it's a tremendous accomplishment for him, and I don't think it's going to end there. I think you'll probably see him as a member of the All-NBA team later on down here in the next few days.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's still going to be a battle. It's still going to be a battle for him to get into All-NBA. Yeah, so it's something that I think we all expected just because he's been so good. He's been good from the opening tip of the season, and he's had a couple of lulls here and there, but nothing that was substantial. And his ability to close in the fourth quarter has been tremendous, not only in the regular season, but all of a sudden in the postseason, we're seeing the same exact thing. And we'll dive into game 1 and game 2 in just a sec. Before we dive into game 1 and game 2, let's address the biggest situation that happened after late in game 2, which is the Draymond Green situation with Domantas Sabonis. I know the reports are a lot of people, people around the situation do not think that Draymond Green will be suspended for game 3 of the series. But I'm going to just say it right away. I think he should be suspended. I think it was one of the craziest things that I've seen from Draymond, and that's saying a lot because he's done a lot of crazy things in his career. I know that we watched, whatever happened, like Sabonis and Klay Thompson collide going for a rebound. Sabonis goes to the floor. Some people are saying that Sabonis flopped. I don't know whether he flopped or he got knocked off balance. He's on the ground, their feet all around him. He does hook Draymond Green's foot, but Domas in postgame last night told us he was trying to protect his face. He had been hit in the jaw really hard early in the game and was grabbing at his jaw the whole time. There was a point where he went to the free throw line where you could see a huge scratch on his shoulder from getting fouled earlier that wasn't called. And you could see that his whole entire face on one side was red from getting hit. And then Draymond Green decides to yank his foot out and then stomp it down on Domas's midsection rib cage. I thought instantly he's done, in the game. And then to watch what happens afterwards, the antics afterwards, and the whole time I keep glancing over and there's Adam Silver sitting in the stands watching the whole thing. And it was almost like Draymond was trying to incite a riot. And I thought it was just wild and over the top. He clearly yelled at least a few choice words at the crowd. What's that? I don't want to say them.
Okay.
Do you want to say them, Sean?
It sounds like Sean wants to.
No, I was like, oh, is James gonna go there? I was all for it. But.
And then when people don't if you don't know where we sit, he actually jumped on the seats and was yelling right up to us. We're right there. Sean, you must have incredible footage of the whole thing.
I shared it. I don't know if you've seen it. I've shared it. I think I encourage everyone to look at it because it's a different angle than what you've seen on the both the Warriors and the Kings broadcast and even the TNT broadcast. And I've seen them all. And I've got many thoughts about this. And I think it goes back to really the first quarter, because that first quarter was incredibly ugly. I mean, you have turnovers all over the place. Steve Kerr, I agree with him 100%. There was probably 10 fouls that probably should have been called, but they were letting him play. They were really letting him go, and there was some ugliness. And the complaints of what Draymond Green is talking about with that have gone on in the series, he's not wrong. But the what happens is you get somebody like Sabonis, who is a total professional, a veteran in this league, and he uses his force and his weight and his strength, and he also uses a lot of deception. He does a lot of stuff that doesn't really get picked up. Tim Duncan, like, it's nothing new. All NBA players do this, including Draymond Green, I might add. So if you watch the video, it starts off with, if you go to that play. Oh, I heard a big sigh. Who's ready for that one?
That was my fault.
I thought you were stewing over there. He's like, "Oh, I'm ready." You'll notice if you see it, and it could look a little different at different angles. In my angle, you'll see it pretty clear as day, and that's Klay Thompson gets kind of ragdolled and flung across the court. Now, a lot of that is because I think Domantas Sabonis, whether intentionally flopping or whatever, goes down, and it looks like he's grabbing at somebody, whatever. That happens. He falls into Draymond Green. He does get latch onto his ankle with his arms, even if he is looking to protect his face. Again, whether intentional or not, I don't care. But the most overt action in the entire thing that is undisputable is the fact that Draymond Green steps on Domantas Sabonis with force, and I would call it a stomp, like you were stepping on a beetle or a spider on the floor, and then Super Mario Brothers jumps off of his body. And
you could have heard like a boing.
The way it happens, look, and again, I'm a huge Draymond Green fan, for the record. I'm going to disagree slightly, and I think I'll explain what I mean here in a minute. I don't think it's even in his top 3 of most egregious shit he's done. But when you couple that with the antagonizing of the crowd afterwards, while Domantas Sabonis is laying there on the ground, even if Draymond Green doesn't think he's hurt, whether he does or he doesn't, the antagonizing of the crowd is something entirely separate. It's unsportsmanlike conduct. He comes over, and you said those choice phrases. I think we'll leave it at that, because there were some words in there I don't like to say, and I say a lot. He also grabbed his crotch, and you don't really see that in my video. It's very brief. But in Jason Anderson's video, which shows a little bit more of a wide angle, you'll see it several times. He's grabbing his junk to the crowd. There is a member he locks eyes on a specific fan in the crowd that probably was egging him on throughout the entire night, and that's all fun fan stuff. I'm all for that. And he's yelling at him and going at him, and it's right out of WWE. For the record, I love it. I love that. It's entertaining. It's fun. Whatever. Draymond Green, I think, completely knew he was going to be ejected for that moment. He was trying to rile up his team. He goes right over to Andrew Wiggins in my video, and you'll see it. Gives him an earful in a hype up type of manner, and is absolutely trying to wake his team up, because they haven't played great in this series at all. At no point have they looked at like, wow, there's the Warriors we know and have grown accustomed to. They haven't played dreadful, god-awful either. I think even this is a team that is used to turning the ball over. But I think he's trying to really incite his team to wake up. And he's using the crowd to his advantage. And it really didn't work. The Kings never take the bait, neither in Game 1 or Game 2. And we can talk about some of those moments there. But yes, I do think Draymond Green is warranted of a suspension. And what I think with the unsportsmanlike conduct thing with riling up the crowd, anytime there's an altercation, like if James and I are NBA players and we push each other in the chest, and then Brenden come over and he then pushes the other person in the chest, Brenden is called the escalator. Okay? You have your moment that Draymond Green steps on Domantas Sabonis in an overt manner that definitely escalates the situation. And then the unsportsmanlike conduct escalates the situation again. To me, it's completely warranted of a suspension, especially with a player who has a very decorated track record. And look, you're talking about a guy here me and James, who covered DeMarcus Cousins in this town, who had a very decorated track record when it comes to such things. Intent matters. I am not in any way, shape, or form excusing what Domantas Sabonis did. And if you're the casual fan out there that thinks, well, I think he was covering him up, or whatever the intent was, Domantas Sabonis is getting away with a ton of shit in this series. None of it matters. And you know why it doesn't matter? Because Draymond Green made an overt motion, a stomping, looking like Ndamukong Suh, if you've ever seen that play, stomping on Domantas Sabonis, and that makes it worse. So it's not, two wrongs don't make a right. I'm not sticking up for Sabonis, but Draymond Green cannot do that. And what De'Aaron Fox said after the game was entirely accurate. All these players are not trying to take the bait. And they've been basically told as much by Mike Brown and his staff. And they've done a phenomenal job in keeping this team in the right headspace because the composure and poise is there. They're not going to try and get any bulletin board material. That Kings team was incredibly bothered by it last night. You look at Harrison Barnes. Harrison Barnes does not speak up a lot when it comes to, he'll pick and choose his moments, right? He gathered his team around eventually. But when you're looking at his teammates laying there on the ground, Harrison Barnes, who knows Draymond Green very well as a former teammate, looking over in that Warriors huddle, he's looking over there in utter disbelief. And they were absolutely bothered by what happened right there. And not to get overly dramatic, but how did this season start, guys? Draymond Green cold-cocked Jordan Poole. Absolute sucker punched him. That is exactly the guy you saw last night in this game when he did the Ndamukong Suh stomp on Domantas Sabonis. And it should warrant a suspension. I say all that, and now I'm speaking out of the other side of my mouth. Guys, I am thrilled, absolutely thrilled as an NBA fan that he is not suspended because I want him in this series. I want these games to be as entertaining as possible. And like it or not, Draymond Green in the series makes this series, these next few games, however long the series goes, whether the Kings win or lose, entirely more entertaining. Sorry, that was a long win. Go ahead.
I can't argue with that. I think Sean touched on pretty much everything there. I do kind of think to the Trey Lyles, Brook Lopez situation, that started at a lower level of Lyles and Lopez kind of going back and forth. And then Trey Lyles is the one that takes it to a whole nother level. Right. And I think that's similar to this Draymond situation as Sean kind of laid out. Like, I don't think that Domas was trying to grab his leg, but there's no way to know. And maybe that was the case. The stomp is just on a whole nother level. And Draymond blaming it on his lack of flexibility is pretty comical to me, to be honest. Stomping down with that sort of force is very clearly for that reason. Like, if he
to injure someone,
if he's getting tangled up, like, you could just scrape your leg sort of past him, or however it ends up happening. Like, that force is extremely over the top. I thought that he might get suspended. I will say I do kind of agree with Sean. It's going to be a lot more entertaining to have him out there. And I also don't think he's been great in this series so far. But it was quite the moment. And for that to happen, as James said, Adam Silver in the building and him go and sort of hype up the crowd, which is the type of antics that I kind of like, but the choice words and maybe the specific way that he went about it was crossing a line at certain points. But it was entertaining, I guess, to say the least. And I guess now it's not confirmed what's going to end up happening, but sounds like there's a decent chance he's not suspended headed into this next game. And I certainly thought there would be one, though.
I'm going to say this. I know the reporting is that people around him do not believe he'll be suspended. I heard it last night. That his people were already saying that they do not believe he'll be suspended. I'm gonna hold off. I'm not gonna rip the NBA for this situation yet because I think they will get it right. And do I want him in the series? Sure, but if he misses a game, I kind of hope he does. I do, because they let's go back to, wasn't the season that they lost where they lost to the Cavs and they heaped all the blame on on Harrison Barnes. Isn't this the same season that Draymond got suspended for a game? Am I wrong? Is my chronological order?
I think that's right. I think that's the year they blew the 3-1. I think that's one and the
Yeah.
same.
So like, look, this guy has. I do not think he'll be back there next year. I think that
No, I don't either.
This situation, it's just like, look, man, we don't want to lose that way anymore. We want to win, but we don't want to win that way, and we don't want to lose that way. We don't want to be those guys, and you're turning us into those guys. And then I'll add this too.
Can I just stop before you do that?
Yeah.
I also think it's more to do with money and salary cap situation. Like, it's okay when you're winning, but then have to pay a guy like that when you've got all these other things. It goes back to Jordan Poole because they had to extend him. But go ahead and finish.
I'm going to say, okay, so I'm
going
going to answer that really quick, and then I'm going to get back to the other thing. He's in the DeMarcus Cousins space now. His productivity is no longer worth the shit you have to deal with because of him. So there becomes a point where a player, you deal with him and his antics because he's up here and his antics and everything else are over here. Once there's a balancing, there's a tipping point, and he's no longer worth that. He's not good enough to keep up with that, then that becomes a problem. Then that's when a team goes, okay, yeah, we're not going to do this anymore.
Yeah, when you're not winning, that I think that's, I agree there too. I mean, because
that, and we'll also see like their front office turnover, and they could throw it in on that, like, oh well, new front office, we're going to do things a little different here. There's a good chance that Bob Myers is out. Did you guys see the Bob Myers getting cowbelled?
Yeah,
that was
unbelievable.
spectacular. Yeah, brilliant Kings fans. Okay, so to get back to the point that I was going to get to, I thought that the way his teammates stood up for him was Bush League. And I'll say it right. Like, I think that Steph just kind of like, that's Draymond being Draymond. He didn't say those words, but he just kind of blew it off like, I don't know what to say. Klay Thompson with this whole, you grab a guy going full speed, like you grab his ankle while he's going full speed. Like, Draymond was stationary. He was standing there. He was stationary. He lifted his leg and then lifted it higher to stomp harder. That's what he did. So let's not act like your dude didn't do something crazy. And this whole series, like, it's kind of turned into this chippy. Like, even before that, I said it's getting chippy in here. Like, it had gotten really chippy leading up to that. And it's even some of the other antics from, like, Jordan Poole, like the flopping. Like, the Kings are sitting there like, man, like, this is hardcore basketball. We came here because everyone said the playoffs is supposed to be like physical and a dogfight. And you're over here like flipping your legs out and kicking people and doing silly things and not playing very well. And the Kings are almost
terrible.
the Kings are almost like the team that's like, what is happening here? Why are we in like an acting class? Like, we thought this was supposed to be all about the game and the physicality and the playoff mentality, and we're dealing with a whole bunch of BS. Like, I don't know. I'm gonna
baby.
go
Playoffs.
I'm gonna go to Brennan on this because I think I have been like harsh on Davion Mitchell all season long. Not all season. I mean, there are times where I give him props for things that he does, but there are other times where I like point out that he hasn't fit into the offense and all these things. I think he has been an X factor in this series. I was completely wrong when I thought when I said I did not think he could stick with Steph Curry. I said that because it's just kind of the type of defender that he is. He loves the man on man like fight. But he isn't great when he's off ball. And I think what he's done on Steph Curry is so next level and wild and crazy to watch that, like, when he walked in with the defensive player of the game chain last night, I was like, oh, yeah. I mean, there was no one else that could have won it. No one. I thought he has been tremendous, but especially in the game last night. Brennan, what are your thoughts on Davion?
Most of what you just kind of laid out. I mean, I think defensively, we all know the caliber of defender he is, but it's different to go up against a guy like Steph Curry, as you mentioned. I mean, kind of just the challenge of how much you're getting through screens. You heard De'Aaron Fox talk about sort of how tiring that can be. And then it's funny to hear Davion get asked, have you seen the JR Deli clip? And do you feel a similar way that it's just sort of beats the crap out of you? And Davion's like, I don't know. I love that end of the floor. This is just kind of what I do. And I think that's very fitting for how Davion is. And he's been phenomenal on that end of the floor. We mentioned Jordan Poole not being great. I think that that was something he struggled with in his first postseason last year as well. But I think that Davion Mitchell is a big impact on Jordan Poole as well in this one. And they're switching a lot too. I think he's done a good job using his size or making up for his lack of traditional like size when it comes to height and taking on a Klay Thompson in situations where he needs to, or still battling with some of the other larger players. And then defensively doing what you kind of expect from him, but then offensively to be able to play alongside De'Aaron Fox, I think was a big question mark coming into this, and something he really didn't do much throughout the course of the regular season at all. And we've seen it a lot. I always feel like the most telling single stat in a box score for Davion is just how many minutes he played. Because if he is playing a significant chunk of minutes, that means he's alongside De'Aaron Fox, good enough offensively to get away with that. And then you know what you are getting on the defensive end. He hit a ginormous 3 in yesterday's game to pretty much ice it and put it away. He also had 0 turnovers in that game and 3 assists. You go back to game 1. He hit one of his 2 threes. I think the first one that he hit was actually when Sacramento was, what were they?
Over
7?
No, they started 0 for 10. He hit the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah. It might have even been 0 for 11, and then they hit 1 of 12, and then Trey Lyles came in and hit 2.
Yeah, I mean, Davion is doing everything you need to him on defense, and he's doing enough to be out there as well on the offensive end, which has just been phenomenal in a series that's one where we've seen a lot of small ball lineups.
Yeah. Sean, what have you seen from Davion that either you're liking or you need to see more of?
Yeah, I mean, he's just, we always talk about such a bulldog. Winning that championship at Baylor, he's got kind of a rise to the moment flair about him, and we always see him pick up full court. He's done it before. It's fun to see how the Warriors react to it before he crosses half court, because it looks like there's some confusion there at times. I really, I expect them to pick Davion a lot sooner than they do, and sometimes it confounds me a little bit as to why they don't. Maybe they just want him to advance to the front court first, but maybe so many of those players are just, I've got to go back and watch, but maybe some of those players just working on just getting outlet and getting farther in front of the ball than worrying about Steph. They just have the confidence that he'll be able to take it and still advance across the midcourt line. But defense is just, I mean, that chain should be named in Davion Mitchell's honor. I mean, there's no other player that plays defense like him on that team. He could take it home every single night. I am a Davion Mitchell fan. I understand the criticisms on offense. He obviously isn't the biggest guy, but he makes up for it. And that kid is just all heart. And such a gym rat, and good for him, man. I knew it was going to be a big night when Draymond Green threw the ball off of Domantas Sabonis' leg. Davion sprints after it, gathers it up, and goes and dunks it on the other end to get his first dunk since Houston. And it was, and then to hit that corner 3, man, just such a big moment. Yeah, and he had also hit a 3 earlier. I think it was. Maybe I'm confusing it with game 1, but. This team starts off 0-10 from 3, just so many threes in that opening quarter that they're just trying to get something to fall. And I didn't know it was, I mean, a quarter later, you get something just starts rolling, and the bench really, really helped them out. And I think the bench has come up. I mean, Malik Monk aside, I think the bench has been very, very impactful in both games. And, yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Davion Mitchell is a huge part of it. I'm glad he got his props. I'm glad to see him have that moment. But every game is so different. You may not even hear from Davion Mitchell in game 3. There might be some answers coming the Kings' way as it pertains to the way he defends Steph. And I think a lot of the reason he had the success he did. He's playing a lot with Fox too, and Fox was harassing him as well. So I kind of give a lot of credit, a tip of the cap there to as well to Fox for Davion to get that kind of freedom, and then Fox help him out when he's been picked.
There's been two. Okay, I'm going to bring up two keys that I think where Mitchell has, Mitchell and others have been kind of game changers. First of all, they are picking Steph up as soon as he crosses half court. They are not allowing him to pull up from 30-something feet and drill a three and change the momentum of the game. You see
Unless
it time
it's
and time
Davion
again.
where he picks him up full court.
Yeah, but even in transition, you're seeing Harrison Barnes yelling, screaming, making sure someone is taking him the whole time. Like the entire defense is built to stop him from getting that transition three. There really is it's a momentum shifter, right? That's what he does with those, and he's just such a great shooter that you got to make sure you're not allowing him to get loose even in the least bit. And the fact that he scored 30 points in game 1 and 28 points in game 2, that's fine. Like he's had good solid games. He's averaging 29 for the series, which his average on the season is 29.4. So he's right there on his average. The fact is that in order to compete with the Sacramento Kings and their 120 something points per game offense, Steph Curry has to be bigger than that. And the Kings have limited what he can do. Now, first up, like in game 2, it's Davion. In game 1, it wasn't Davion. It was De'Aaron Fox. And that would be the other point that I would bring up. I didn't expect Mike Brown to make a bunch of structural changes in game 2 because they won game 1. And I thought they were impressive in game 1. And the only reason why they didn't have a larger margin of victory because they didn't hit shots, right? So we sat there and watched Kevin Huerter and Keegan Murray combined to go 0 of 8 from 3. And Harrison Barnes was like 1 of 4. Like they didn't hit their shots. So I expected maybe a lot of the same, and that's not at all what we got. We got a completely different approach to defending Steph Curry in game 2 than we did in game 1. In game 1, it was all De'Aaron Fox. For 40 minutes, he was all over the court. Not only does he put up 38 points, but he was so dominant on the defensive end. He was playing man on defense on Steph, especially in the first quarter and the fourth quarter. He just came up so big as a two-way player. And then to see them switch it up, I thought, man, that's brilliant because now I don't know what you're going to do in game 3. And that's the beauty of what Mike Brown did there. Like none of us saw Alex Len playing. And then here's this guy out there like, what is happening? Alex Len is blocking shots. He's getting all these rebounds. And why is he playing against a team that has no big man? And
I had to crumple up my bingo card. I didn't have it. It was done.
Just like light the bingo card on fire.
There it goes.
Yeah, but Brenden, what do you make of that switch where we're seeing Mike Brown show different, again, we talk about the chess match, but he's showing different things when he really didn't even have to.
Yeah, I think Alex Len is a good example. Like I think the sort of chess match that has been Alex Len has been really intriguing to me. Like for the first game, he goes out there and it's like, okay, you're going to guard Jonathan Kuminga. We're going to put Trey Lyles on Draymond Green because you don't want Alex Len involved directly in that pick and roll. And then you see Golden State trying to, okay, well, maybe instead we're going to set screens with Kuminga. So Len is involved, but Kuminga's just not the same screen setter, and it doesn't have the same impact. Or in game 2, you see Alex Len being assigned to Gary Payton, like size mismatch, speed mismatch, you would think, but there's just not. Gary Payton's an okay 3-point shooter from the corners, but I think that you're living with that over Steph Curry having Len involved in a pick and roll. And like, I think that he's been extremely creative in how they've gone about that and getting away with the Len minutes and also picking and choosing when those should be. I thought that like end of third, beginning of fourth, that Sacramento was going on a good run, but you felt like Domas was about to take his break. And it's like, okay, there's going to be a big moment here where Len is on the floor, and can Sacramento survive these minutes and not let it kill them pretty much. But it was only about 2 minutes before Domas came back in the game. I think Coach did a great job of recognizing how big of a moment that was and going back to Domas and then leaning on him for almost 39 minutes, 37 seconds in yesterday's game. But it's been great. There's box and one that we're seeing plenty, like a lot of box and one. I feel like it's pretty rare to see this much of it in a game. And there's been De'Aaron Fox being the one. There's Davion Mitchell being the one. There's Kevin Huerter being the one. Harrison Barnes has done it at times. I think De'Aaron Fox said after game one, there was a point where Harrison came up to him and was like, I'm going to take a few possessions on Steph just to give you a little bit of a break. And I think Harrison's been great defensively. The adjustments from this Sacramento team have been so good. And I will say, I think part of the reason that box and one is working so well is just that Golden State doesn't really have a secondary playmaker after Curry. Like Draymond is the one, but then you even heard after game 2 that De'Aaron shared that one of the big adjustments was we don't want Draymond to be a playmaker the way he was in game 1. He had 11 assists in game 1 and 3 turnovers. And then he ends game 2 with 5 assists and 5 turnovers. And so you take away that secondary playmaking when Jordan Poole is such a bad defender that he's not really able to be on the floor as that other option that like Curry can't do it by himself. And then on the other end, the Kings have a Malik Monk when you try and focus on De'Aaron Fox. Davion Mitchell has the capabilities of putting the ball on the floor and making plays for others, and obviously Sabonis. So I feel like there are rotational differences and depth that really stand out here, but I feel like Coach Brown has coached a hell of a 2 games.
Yeah, Sean, we talk about all of like this chess match and how it keeps going back and forth. Are you surprised? Even like the box and one that Brendan's talking about, Mike Brown literally after game 1's like, yeah, I was like, let's do a box and one. And guys are like, okay. And they hadn't even really worked on the box and one. Mike Brown like has a deep-seated hatred for zone defenses. He tells us all the time. The one line early in the season was everyone has a zone defense and they all suck. Like he does not like the zone defense. He said Alex Len came to him and said, hey, coach, can you just like map it out really quick and show me the box and one so I know what I'm doing? And Mike's like, no, just go out there and play.
Do your best version of it.
Yeah, just
you don't know what you're doing, then there's no chance the Warriors know what we're doing. And
exactly.
I guess.
Yeah, it's almost like a chaos theory. Like how much of the of that, like the cat and mouse, have you enjoyed in this series where like we watched this Warriors team systematically destroy the Dallas Mavericks last year, right? By getting Luka Doncic in a switch again and again and again. It was some crazy stat like they had taken 70 field goals against him or something, or maybe it was even more than that. But they haven't been able to do that to any one King in this series.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue it's just a changing of the guard, that this team isn't what they used to be, and certainly that's kind of bared fruit with the way the season ended with them being in the 6th seed. But also, I just think, look, to me, I just give the Toronto Raptors a few years ago all the credit because box and one became kind of a household term and people know what it is, and that's how they won the championship, was using box and one, and they still have a lot of that same personnel on the Warriors, and they're still not nearly as equipped to deal with it. Certainly they had hopes for some people to be able to help them kind of get the code cracked a bit, but yeah, I mean, the Warriors were able, or the Raptors were able to do it. They've shown the league, and now you've got little variations of it. And I think Mike Brown really knows it better than anyone because he saw what it was like to lose to that Toronto team. He knows what it's like to go up against all these other teams trying to game plan against Steph Curry, and he knows the DNA, and so does Leandro Barbosa, Luke Laux, just so many people that have a connection to that organization. They know the DNA of that team. So after a while, people start to kind of crack the code, and it's up to the Warriors then to make the adjustments. And when you don't have an Andre Iguodala, who's obviously beyond his years, but not nearly the Iguodala he used to be, you get a Gary Payton back who was impactful last year for a certain physicality, and this year he's not quite that same player. He's been riddled with injuries, and it just feels like that natural changing of the guard. And I that's not to say that this team can't flip that switch. Look, there's the old adage, and it's an adage for a reason. Cliches are cliches for a reason, because this series doesn't start until the road team loses, or until
the home team.
Try it again.
Yeah.
Home team loses. All the Kings did was protect home court. We can go through all the minutia of what each game looks like, and certainly it's fun to do. And each game, like we say, has its own identity. But nothing's happened yet. You're halfway there, but halfway ain't a series, and the Warriors know what it's like to even battle back from deficits, and they just have never been 0-2 going under their home floor. But it's also, as Draymond Green said yesterday, it's an experience that they've never experienced, and now that's the fun part. Like, now we get to experience something we've never experienced before, speaking from a Warriors standpoint, and it'll be a lot of fun. I will say this: I do want to go back real quickly though, and get your thoughts, James, because we talk about the poise and the confidence, and that's been so hammered through, and that starts not even with, I mean, Mike Brown and his staff. They're gonna drill the hell out of that. It seeps a little bit deeper rooted with like someone like Graham Bechert. I forget how you pronounce his name. I've done a story with him before. He's the meditation coach, live in the moment, all these things. That he even goes back to Scal Labissiere. He was added to the staff, and I think he is a key ingredient in this as well, in keeping the team in the moment and not to overreact and concentrate on things, and the way Mike Brown really divides up the season and looking at 5-game series and try to win 3, and I think it's so important, and it's really helped prep his team for this moment of the playoffs, because it's something that was trickled in from the regular season, right? So having stuff like that and not taking the bait, and we can go back to game 1, and there's 2 moments that stand out for me, and I think I've mentioned it both to you guys separately, but the first one was when Trey Lyles, okay? You've got Trey Lyles, Draymond Green wants to go chest to chest with him, and Trey Lyles gives him the little Drake smirk, like, oh, that's cute. Like, he's amused by it. He doesn't engage, and if anything, he kind of walks away and doesn't give Draymond what he's looking for. The one guy that'll do it, though, because usually you'll hear chirping from the bench. The one guy that's going to do it, though, is Malik Monk. They have their own Draymond Green when it comes to trash and just constant chirping, and fortunately, it hasn't gone the other way for Malik Monk. He's been fantastic in this series, and he's going to be chirping and barking all the while. I mean, you'll see Malik Monk walking this way, Draymond's walking this way. They're always talking. They're going to intersect at some point, and they're always talking to each other. I think that's a good thing. I mean, it hasn't gone negative for the Kings, but they don't take the bait either. It's nothing that gets escalated yet. Now, granted, we're only 2 games into this series. Now we have a lot of question marks coming in. And I posed the question to Domantas Sabonis last night. The maturity of this team has shown, but the maturity of the team has shown because they didn't have any pressure on them. Now you're up 2-0 in a series going into San Francisco. Do you let go of the rope? Does the overconfidence step in? We've seen it at different parts of the season. How does it look going into a hostile environment? You've had the hostile environment, and by the way, I didn't think the Warriors would succumb to any type of crowd pressure because they're used to that type of frenzied environment. I mean, every team has environments to a degree, but everyone knows what Oracle looked like back in the day, and Chase Center isn't quite Oracle, but it's still a raucous environment. And I'm surprised that the Warriors have looked a little frazzled at times, be it the Kings defense, the Kings not taking the bait, or even just the environment inside Golden One Center. And to see someone like Draymond Green rile them up, kind of feeding into that hand is really something. So I didn't think that would happen. But James, I mean, they don't take the bait. They live in the moment, and that's total credit to what this staff is doing.
It's a total credit. I mean, and it's everybody. It's everybody that's on this team. So, like, I told the story on the radio the other day. We've talked a million times. Like, Doug was my podcast partner for 3 years, Doug Christie. We used to drive all over the place together. I would pick him up and drive him to the city for us to do pre and post game all the time. We're friends. So I went over and I'm like, you guys ready for this? No, I think I said, congrats on making the playoffs. He's like, I'm like, no. He's like, no, I came back for one reason. And I was like, oh, that's where we are? Like, I'm facing intense Doug Christie about to punch Rick Fox at the end of the regular season in your first playoff run. Like, you guys are intense. Like, that's what this group is about. It's about, like, hey, we have a job to do, and we're not going to back down from the job. Like, Mike Brown says it. Like, it's almost why not us? Like, why can't we win this thing? Everyone's here in the playoffs to go win a championship. Like, why would anyone expect us to think differently? And I dig it. Like whatever it is that they've been able to install. And Mike talks about it all the time. He goes back to the St. Mary's coach, where he starts talking about, like get your teams to believe, right? If there was something that they would do differently, it would have been that he would have instilled this belief in his group early on. So when you like, we always worry about adversity, right? Well, the Kings have faced adversity even in this series, and they've done just fine. But it's not really that. Like when you haven't been there before, how do you deal with success? And the fact that this team has owned success as well as they have avoided adversity is really a testament to everyone that's there that's like making the whole thing work behind the scenes. And I don't know how it's worked out because even like we talked about the Draymond Green situation, like pestering and like he's been an adjutant almost to himself and to his team. Like the Kings almost are like they're not even paying attention. And then, you could say that Domas does a lot of the same things that Draymond does. He just does it with his body. He just physically destroys you the entire game. And it's whether it's an elbow or, like it's a lot of Vlade Divac stuff. It's a lot of Arvydas Sabonis stuff. It's stuff that you don't see. Yeah. It's the chicken wing. It's the catching you with the elbow on the way through. There's so many things that are going on between those two. And Sabonis is going to walk away every time, but it's not like he doesn't think that he got you because he knows he did. That's why he keeps doing it. Like that's why he even the play right before the Draymond Green thing, before the stomp happened, he flopped sort of. Like Draymond was called for the foul, and I think that's what got under Draymond's skin. That like, dude, that guy just flopped on me. Like that doesn't happen. We're the team that does that stuff, and I just think that it's really cool how we're seeing a team like grow and learn, but they're able to do something that I tell my boys all the time. You can learn from someone else's mistake. You don't have to make the mistake yourself. You can go, oh yeah, no, that was a bad idea. I'm not jumping off that roof into that 3-foot pole. I'm going to let that other guy do that.
That was specific.
Yeah, well,
was that your mistake? Was that
yeah? It may have been my mistake.
Oh no!
But you know what I mean? Like we're guys. We've been around guys doing stupid stuff our whole lives. It feels like this team is like, yeah, that's probably not what the commissioner's right there, and you're standing up on a stool, like on a chair, yelling at fans and calling him the P word and other words, and like you're doing all these things. Like
what's the P word?
Playoffs.
Sorry.
Playoffs, yes. The cat word, yes. So, like, there are these moments where you're like, the Kings seem to be the composed team. They're the team that's not getting rattled. So, Sean, to answer your question, yeah, I think it is almost like this zen to the team that you just don't expect. Because, again, the reason why there are always questions about experience is because experience is a real thing in every walk of life. Like we all deal with whether you have experience or you have a lack of experience and you've got to gain experience. It's not like this is some random thing that no one understands. Like we all understand that when you walk into a playoff series and one team has 817 games of experience and the other one has 182, that one team does not know a whole lot about what's about to happen and another team does. It just feels like it doesn't even matter at this point, which is, to me, it's really strange.
The Kings have had this like stoic and like composed sort of composure about them the entire year, at least from what we could tell in media settings. Like I think that starts with Coach Brown, but obviously a lot of credit is due to not only the rest of the coaching staff, but all the players for having embraced that. They're never trying to look too far into the future. They're never trying to reflect too far back on the past. And even just, for example, the regular season, breaking that up into 5-game mini seasons and just focusing on that specific portion that you are in, not going too far forward or back. And obviously, I'm sure that's broken up differently when it comes to playoff series, but I think that you're seeing it translate. It's going to be big to see how they respond going into Chase Center. I was one that kind of threw out the whole home and road stuff for both teams coming into the postseason, but I could be wrong for that. We're talking about a Golden State team that was 11-30 on the road and 33-8 at home. One of the most drastic home road variances that we've seen this season. And maybe that'll show. We talked about like Jordan Poole not being good these 2 games. That's the type of guy that stands out to me, that maybe in his building he has some juice, and maybe Malik is not quite the same. And like that difference in itself could be everything to this series. So they've been extremely impressive so far. I think there's a lot of reasons to believe the whole why not, why can't it be us? Shit, I'm starting to ask the same thing, like a little bit, but I recognize a little bit I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. But I do think there are very much reasons to believe with what we've seen so far. It's far from over, but they've put themselves in a good spot.
I'm going to say something that will probably like get like a reaction somewhere.
Okay, hold on a minute.
Yep.
Okay, go.
Is Malik Monk who Jordan Poole thinks he is?
Stop.
No, in game 1 and 2.
So here's what I keep realizing with Jordan Poole. Like Jordan Poole averages 20 a game on the season. Jordan Poole feels more like a Malik Monk type player. Like he shouldn't be averaging 20 points a game. Like that's maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just like seeing playoff version and that's different. Maybe something's happened here where he's not right. I know he had the ankle injury, but like everybody has bumps and bruises at this point in the season. It feels like if Jordan Poole is going to be really effective, it's in that short burst type thing that we usually get from Malik Monk. But that's not who he has to be for them. And he's played, major minutes and, again, averaged 20 points a game. Malik Monk on the season averages like 14 points a game. And then when you're looking at the 2 players in this series, like who would you rather have?
Yeah, to me they are different. Like I just don't think Jordan Poole is ready for that type. Like they want him to play a different role. They want him to be like they just don't have playmaking, and Malik ends up having to be a playmaker. He plays a 2-man game really well. Jordan Poole's out there trying to. I mean, he's got such awkward motions. He's throwing the ball all over the court. I mean, this team turns the ball over a lot. I know Malik has turnover prone issues himself, but it's just different. Like it has a different feel. I think like Jordan has had you go back to the playoffs last year where he peaked at one point and then was nowhere to be found the longer the series went on, or longer the playoffs went on. He struggled. He struggled this year. He's had ups and downs as well. So I just think that they're asked to do different roles. I don't see them as similar players at all. But I am a little upset that we went about an hour and we haven't really talked about Malik Monk in depth with how how unbelievable he has been for this team. And if like we already knew the crowd was going to be incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Game 1's crowd was great. It was great when the team walked out on the floor. Game 2 felt a little bit less than that until it reached a moment, especially after that first quarter. And I think Malik Monk had everything to do with it. I think obviously Draymond Green had a lot to do with it eventually as it got louder and louder in the fourth quarter. But I think he was absolutely living up to what I call is that important player, that heart and soul, giving the Kings that swagger, and just really really lighting up the crowd, including his team, and he's just been tremendous.
I think he's been tremendous too. It was he hit 3 threes in the first 2 minutes and 6 seconds of the second quarter, and they had other points too. I think Alex Len in that stretch had the 2 dunks. So they came out after a really, really subpar first quarter, and they just pounded. Like that first, it just woke up everything. It woke up the whole crowd. He's an electric player. He's a guy that when he steps on the court, the entire energy in the building changes. And so we've talked about it all season long that, he's really, really important to this team. But I think, and that's where that wasn't meant as disrespect to Jordan Poole as much as that's who Jordan Poole probably should be. What they're trying to force him, the box they're trying to force him into as a pseudo starter, and whatever it is that he does, it doesn't feel like it's the right type of role. He's more, and again, Like you're
It's
looking
tough
at
because he's 23 years old. He's I know
but Monk's
Malik isn't
24.
much older, right? I'm just saying like I think that the experience that Monk has had and the freedom to play so many more minutes on teams that aren't nearly as good as the Warriors, it just comes in different wavelengths for him. And Jordan is a guy that they've got huge aspirations for eventually, but I just don't think they play the same type of role or even utilize the same way as they like. And plus, he's a nothing on defense, like an absolute zero on defense.
He's a negative. On defense.
He would be. We were having conversations with. I think Nate Duncan was in earshot, and Monty Poole, and it's like if you came up with an all NBA zero defense team or worst defense team, like he's team one.
Yeah. Brenden, go for it.
He definitely is. And I think that I thought that Malik would really struggle on defense, but he has put up a fight there. Like there were moments yesterday where he's guarding Andrew Wiggins and, just trying to get up into him and apply some ball pressure and they're switching a lot. So he ends up on different guys, but I think him not getting attacked has been a big part in this series in a way that I thought he would. And again, I think a lot of this comes down to Golden State's bench, man. Like anybody they throw out there is a one-way player. It feels like they have major limitations on one end of the floor. I'm surprised we haven't seen a little bit more Dante, but I
he
think
was
that
benched. He was benched. Him and Poole were both benched in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. Jordan Poole struggles defensively. Gary Payton really struggles offensively. If that corner three ball is not going down, Jonathan Kuminga struggles offensively, like to the point where they're trying Moses Moody yesterday, and that was out of desperation. It did. He got some decent boards, but they just have a lot of sort of one-way players, I feel like, on their bench. And hypothetically, Sacramento's the same when you're talking about Davion and Malik Monk and Trey Lyles, guys that have made a big difference. But they found a way to just not kill you with their weaknesses, do enough to make up for it. Like I think the physicality has been a really big thing in this series, obviously. And it seems like maybe that's getting to Jordan Poole a lot more than it seems to be getting to Malik Monk. But both these guys are really inconsistent players. And I didn't think after the game one that Malik Monk had that he'd be able to have another performance like that. And sure, he didn't have 32. Right, a lot of that has to do with those 14 free throws, but came out in game two. And I mean, to have 18 and 3 with one turnover and that huge stretch that you mentioned, James, I think hitting 3-point shots when really nobody else on your team is able to knock down threes, it feels like for a little while has been big. But I'm not convinced this is an every game thing yet for Malik. We need to see it more.
I'll say this too, we're talking about a team that's 2-0 going to San Francisco. This series could very easily be 1-1 right now. I don't think there's any chance that this is an 0-2 series for the Kings. Game one could have gone, you're a Steph 3-pointer away from essentially tying it at that moment. I think it's still a very delicate series and the Warriors still haven't played their best. I still kind of maintain going back to game one, Domantas Sabonis, who I think is such a key in the series, I don't think he play worse than he plays in game one. And if he does, because I think game one he played terribly, we get it, but he still had some moments though. Like you think of that moment where he gets tied up with Draymond Green on the other end of the floor. It's a crucial point in the game. Warriors can't capitalize. They miss. Who gets the rebound? Domas. Like just a huge fucking play for the Kings. It really was. And to see that game, I think it was such a turning moment in that game. You could have lost that game. You could have lost that game. This series could be 1-1. The fact that it's 2-0 is fantastic. But if you're the Warriors, you're thinking we haven't had our moment yet. We haven't had our game yet. Like you really haven't. The fact that the Kings, and I just bristle at this because Malik Monk said it after game one. We have to come out. We're hitting first. That's the mentality. We're hitting first, right? We talk so much about how the Kings length isn't. There's always a problem with this team. Physicality. They're more of a finesse team. De'Aaron Fox says they're a finesse team. They even admitted it. They're the ones that are the aggressors, and I just didn't expect that against the Warriors, who have Kevon Looney. He was fantastic in game one. Gets into foul trouble. That's what you have to do. They've absolutely, I wouldn't say they're totally in the heads, but they're definitely struggling with the physicality coming from Sacramento. And I just didn't think that was going to be a point in this series, maybe for a game, but not through two, not two straight games where they're looking like the aggressors.
Sean, we talked about this a little bit, but we kept looking at all of these matchups for the Kings, and I said it a couple of times. Either the team you're going to face had incredible experience, and like, let's not, like, they also have superstars. So whether you're playing the Lakers in the first round, the Warriors in the first round, the Suns in the first round, the Clippers in the first round, they have not only experience, but they all have stars. They, superstars on their team, right? And then the other choice was to play all of these crazy lengthy teams that the Kings just totally struggle with, and they take you out of who and what you are. But there was this thing hiding behind the scenes. It was like, well, everyone wants to play the Kings because they lack experience, but do you really want to face this team? Do you really know who they are? Do you know how to stop them? And like, there are things that the Kings have that the Warriors just can't stop. Like the first game, there's not going to be another game in this series where Domantas Sabonis goes, 5 of 17 from the field. There's not. Like, that's not who he is. He's not even a player who usually takes 17 shots. Sean complains about it all the time. He thinks Domas should be a 20-point per game guy and should take more shots. Well, for him to take 17...
Especially when you're 0 of 10 from 3.
from 3, yeah.
Second game 2, yeah.
Well, and we can just go down the list, but you talk about, like, there isn't a player in the league that can truly lock down De'Aaron Fox one-on-one. And the Warriors have good defensive players that, they're throwing Wiggins on him. They're throwing GP2 at him. Doesn't matter, 38 in the first game, 24 in the second game. He saved himself in the second game for late push and was impressive, just like he has been. Like, this team is difficult to defend. And sure, the defensive side of the ball, yeah, that's trouble. But that you still have to outscore them. They still won 48 games, but like teams throughout the season were not able to figure out the Kings. So I don't know. This has been a fun series, and I think we're all caught off guard by where we are. But should we be? Because we've been around this team the whole season, and we've kind of felt this team the whole season. You know what I'm talking about, Brenden? Like, we've been around these guys. We know that this is like the workmanlike and who they've been.
I knew that it wasn't just lip service and these guys actually believe in themselves to do more than just make postseason. But like, I think the whole people wanting to play the Kings had the experience played a part, but I think the just horrible defense that we saw from them all year long was probably an even bigger factor. And that's why, like, I feel like yesterday really did a lot for me for my perspective of what this team is capable of. We've seen them have moments, good defensive moments, right? I think of, like, I believe it was in Cleveland earlier this year. They had a great fourth quarter that really limited one of the better teams in the Eastern Conference from scoring late in that game. They had that really good game against New Orleans towards the end of the year. We've seen them have like good quarters, but I tended to lean more towards the majority of the time where they were pretty bad on defense, like horrible on defense, giving teams kind of whatever they wanted specifically at the rim. And maybe that Warriors being one of the lowest percentage of their points in the paint team plays a factor here. But to win a game on the defensive end with that sort of physicality that you guys are talking about and getting the depth from the rest of the team, Domantas Sabonis still doing what he does, De'Aaron Fox still doing what he does, like winning a game on the defensive end changes a lot for me. If this team can be a solid defensive team, then the offense is going to be there, as we know. If they can beat the defending champs, like, who's to say they can't win round 2? I'm getting ahead of myself, but
well, all those are great points, and you're not necessarily wrong. I just would caution, because look, all the Kings have shown is that they've showed that they belong, right? They show that they belong. They're sort of validating that third seed that they earned in the regular season. But we're 2 games in on your home floor. We haven't seen shit yet. So, like,
is that true?
The inexperience,
saying, Sean. The series doesn't start until I hate it.
It's true, though. I mean, you haven't even seen what this team looks like. Again, like, I think even you will admit, especially covering your first playoff series, that both of these games compare it to something in the regular season.
Yeah.
Right?
Defensively,
Like,
you can't.
No, but even in physicality, hello? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, all these games are different. Like, if anyone wants to see, like, what, like, you can certainly see playoff style games in the regular season. Don't get me wrong. I'm saying, look at the strategy going in. Look at you've got days to prepare for your opponent. Okay. You're not catching a bus or a flight to get to Milwaukee the next night. These are different by virtue of just the way they're set up. And I like through 2 games, like there's still inexperience can still come and bite this team in the ass. You drop the next 3 out of 4. How about that for inexperience?
Yeah.
So like just 2 games, just want to put some caution out there. This is exactly what Domantas Sabonis is talking about when I ask him the question tomorrow or yesterday, which is there curiosity with how you handle success? You're about to go into a different environment. We've seen your team during the regular season take opponents for granted sometimes. Certainly that's in the Kings' DNA over the past 2 years. Granted, different situation this year, but we've seen an overconfident Kings team, what that looks like. We've seen Kings teams who overlook their opponent a little bit, start feeling themselves a little bit. What's it look like in the playoffs?
I'm going to, my one response to you would be,
shut up, right?
No, Sean. They did that plenty of times. It was always at home. On the road, they were all business all season long. And that's something that, I'm kind of looking at this like, okay, you got really one of the best Western Conference home teams against the best Western Conference road team. And this team won 25 games on the road, puts them at 25-16. Like, they were really, really good on the road. And when we saw the workman-like atmosphere, the focus, the hyper focus that this team does, it's always on the road. So I'm excited to see what it looks like.
Absolutely.
All right. Yeah. And the other thing I'll point out before we get to the random weird stuff that's happened as well, because we can't keep this going on all day long. The other thing I'm going to point out is we talked about it before the series, and I thought it was going to be like 80-20, 90-10 crowd. It was more like 98-2 in Sacramento. Yeah. That will not be what it is in San Francisco. There are Kings fans who have been buying up seats at Chase nonstop, and there will be a Kings fan, a purple presence in the building. And so I think it's going to be interesting. We're going to have to see how it goes. Like, this team travels well, and 90 miles down the road is it's not going to take much to travel. Okay, let's get to this weird situation with E40. And I don't want to spend a ton of time on it because I don't know the whole situation. There's all kinds of accusations. There's racial overtones. There's people calling some lady a Karen. There's just a bunch of weird stuff that's gone on here. Sean, do you have any insight on this, insider information on this that you want to tell us about?
I'll just say this too. I'm going to start it by saying I'm of a different ilk. I don't mind crazy fans saying whatever the hell they want and creating you paid a lot of money for those seats. That doesn't, give you all the privilege in the world, but certainly the NBA has a fan code of conduct. I think sometimes even those are too strict. But I'll give you a little bit of a devil's advocate here, both involving Warriors fans. Actually, you have somebody like E40, who everyone knows, front row 40, be it at the Giants game, 49ers games, he's always the same. He's standing up. He's having a good time. He has a moment with some fans. Still not totally clear what happened. He looks like he was definitely egged on, in my opinion. From what I've heard from people close to him, he'll even admit he should have handled himself a little bit better. But
he'd also, I had heard, had a few drinks.
That's not uncommon for any fan in the building.
No. Yeah.
Right. I will just say, look, the entire fucking arena is standing, okay? And if E40 is standing in the way, what do you think Dr. disrespect sitting courtside over by the Kings bench is doing, and he's what, 6'5", with
a
his
giant
stupid
hat
headset on
or-
and a
yeah.
big old wig, like like he's standing the entire time. No one's going over to him telling him to sit the fuck down. You know what I mean? So I'm just like, I just feel like cooler heads could have prevailed. A warning probably should have been issued. Maybe, I'm not going to kill the security staff. We don't know the situation, but that's like, if E40 acted out, and clearly there are those that think he did, I think you have to give a warning to 2 warnings. I don't think you just pull the trigger so quickly. That's the way I look at it. I think there could have been moments, and people I've talked to who were down there, who even with the Warriors, who say like, no, it was a problem. It looked like they had a 0 tolerance policy with him. There are different security members over on one side than there are on different parts of the building. We get that. I would absolutely think that E40 should not be banned from the Golden One Center. Not that he is. He wasn't there for game 2. I think cooler heads will prevail. But people are going to sit court. If you have someone standing in your way, stand up. I go to concerts all the time. I'm not the guy standing in front of people if some people are sitting behind me, but clearly you're going to stand up at certain times. And, if the people in front of you stand up, you can ask them to sit down, sure. But they're not entitled to sit down. It's a freaking concert. It's a sporting event. This isn't church. Stand up.
I kind of wish they would have relocated him, like if it was that big of an issue, or relocated the fans behind him. Whatever it was, can you just move him over 5 seats or something, put him on the end so we don't have this situation? Because it didn't need to, like, I don't know. And like, we talk to security guards all the time. Like, the security guards are like, they're like family. We walk in, we know almost all of them. All the guys are around the court. We're on the court all the time. I think they're all, for the most part, level-headed, cool dudes. Like, I've never had a bunch of issues with the security around the court. But, then again, I'm there every day. They all know me. Maybe they don't know him. Maybe they didn't know who he was. But I didn't like that, one of the security guards is standing there and he slapped his hand away. And I was like, okay, like, this thing hopefully doesn't escalate. That's what you're seeing in this situation. And so, yeah, it's a bummer. I
also bristle. Don't touch people. You don't need to touch people. You don't have to escort. You know what I mean? We're not at the point where we have to escort people and touch people on the arm. And you know what I mean? Just like, I just feel like there's ample things that could have been done. Speaking within the moment, who knows? I want to preface, don't know the entire thing that happened. But
yeah.
I feel like more could have been done to try to de-escalate it from becoming an issue. And I don't know that, all I'll say is I've been plenty sporting events where E40 is a ever-present fan at games, where he's courtside and doing everything that he's done, and even in visiting arenas, mind you. And this is the first time I've ever seen anything like that. So
yeah.
Yeah, unfortunate. I think he should be welcome back in here. I know he's got a lot of love for this city.
Yeah, I hope he comes back.
But also, I get it again. Speaking out of both sides of my mouths again, I kind of like it. It's just, hey,
there's a beef.
There's one fan. They know which time you're rooting for. That be damned. Like, it can't get vile and it can't get physical and violent. None of that, obviously. But if it's good old fashioned trash talk, I'm all here for it. I really am.
Contrary to what his lyrics would lead you to believe, E40 does not like when people tell him when to go.
No, he does
what
not
we
like
found out.
It's too bad. I would say hopefully the door is still wide open for him.
Yeah, Brenden, do you have any thoughts on this one?
I mean, I pretty much agree with everything that Sean was just kind of saying there. Like, he is absolutely entitled to be standing. If that was the main issue, I think that's ridiculous. I think that there should be some sort of warnings or other way that you attempt to sort of resolve that before it's just like, all right, well, we're going to get this guy out of here. Yeah, I mean, I don't have too much knowledge on exactly what happened except for just kind of the reporting that's been there. But I pretty much just agree with everything that Sean laid out there. I think that we've seen E40 at a lot of events, and he's never really caused any issues. So that tends to make me lean towards giving him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, and I'll say this, like, too, like what we've heard, what we've seen, like some of the reporting on it and all that stuff. Like it did get like he didn't get removed from the building because he wouldn't sit down. He got removed from the building because words were spoken with the people behind him. And why those words were spoken was because he wouldn't sit down. But that's not that to say that there weren't words that were spoken, that things had started to escalate and started to get a little out of control between the two parties. And that's why he was removed. It's not because he wouldn't sit down. It's totally different. The guys didn't go over and like say sit down. At least I don't believe. It was about the conversation that they were having that started to get out of control with the people behind him. So yeah,
And then it is funny. You're talking about words that are exchanged. Fast forward to game 2, where literally you have a player yelling at a fan, calling him the P word, as James called it.
the P word.
Amazing. And grabbing his junk to that fan.
Yeah,
It's just, I'm just saying, man.
amazing.
This is
okay,
all entertainment. It's sports. It's fun. Have
It
fun,
is.
God damn it.
Let's race through this really quick. And we'll even we'll call this the business of basketball. Who was your favorite person to show up at the games over the last couple of games? Because we had sitting courtside in game 1 was Vlade Divac, Bobby Jackson, and Jason Williams sitting next to each other. The guy who leads the all-time leader in games played for the Sacramento Kings is Jason Thompson. He was relegated to the second row.
Was he in the second row?
Yeah, he was in second row. I love me some JT, but he kind of got the short end of the stick there. I wish we would have got to see him, but I was up close and personal and talked to him, covered him for a long time. Floyd Mayweather in game 2,
yeah.
which I thought was slightly strange, but Vivek makes his decisions on who's going to sit by him and who doesn't.
Which is funny because he and 50 Cent used to have beef, evidently, and now they can sit courtside with the TNT table separating them. I think they're all good now. I just go back.
There was some
hilarious. Yeah,
It was so good. Brendan, you want to explain?
Not really. I think just my favorite moments are 50 telling Floyd that he should try to read a children's book on live air and see if he could do it. And there's a handful of comments back and forth, but it was very funny, very entertaining.
I miss this beef. Sean, do you know more of this beef? I'm here for this beef.
I'm going to put it down. I think Brendan got to my favorite part of it all, so I'm going to put it down. But
yeah.
Brad Miller courtside for both games. It is a little typical corner perch. Peja was there last night. I think my favorite, though, is the guy who I aspire to be like one day, and that's the great Jimmy Goldstein, who is ever present at playoff games. He's only been to one Kings game, and that was the opener at Golden One Center. And he didn't make it to game 1. I was really hoping he'd be there for game 1. But he was there game 2, and if you've never seen Jimmy Goldstein, Google him. His house is amazing. It's been used in both Space Jam recreation, but it started in the Big Lebowski, Jackie Treehorn's house. If you've ever seen Big Lebowski, that is his property, the Goldstein Sheets residence, I think it's called. But if you've never seen him, he's the old man who looks decrepit and has a whole bunch of leather, wearing crocodile like hats and jackets and eccentric, and he's always courtside, and just one of the biggest NBA fans ever. Made a lot of money in fashion, real estate, a little bit of music industry as well, and he's always kind of secretive as to how he makes his money, but those are some of the areas he's really made his boon. So to see him courtside kind of really made it feel like it was real. Like, holy shit, the playoffs are here. You got Jimmy Goldstein courtside. Like, this is a thing. So I'll tell you this much. He's always in the Warrior playoff games. He doesn't miss them. He's based in LA. He hates the Lakers. He absolutely hates the Lakers, and yet he's courtside so often for the Lakers. But I don't think he's going to miss another game this entire series.
He will also, you can find him if you walk into an NBA arena and there is a 6 foot tall supermodel. It doesn't matter who it is. She's with Jimmy.
Yep.
Every time. So he's always there.
Man.
So I'll tell you, when I was in Toronto covering the finals, I actually bumped into him like he was trying to get into the building. But he got lost, and then he found security, but security wouldn't let him in because he didn't have a media pass. And he gets to go to everything. He's more than a super fan. He actually gets in the door and gets to go hang out while media sessions are happening and stuff. So I actually walked him all the way around the building, and we chatted the whole time through some really rough, the sidewalks and stuff were all over the place. He's not a super young man, but I delivered him to the NBA trailer and made sure he had his credential and everything, and we had a long conversation the whole way. I thought he was really cool. It was fun to talk to him. But anyway, Brenden, do you have
83 years old?
He's 83. Brenden, do you know who we're talking about?
I mean, I know the name for sure. I didn't know what he did except for being at games, to be honest.
Being famous
for
something.
But I don't know. I mean, everybody being in the building, I think to Sean's point, does add to the sort of playoff atmosphere, for Vlade Peja to be there, for Jason Williams to be there in game one. I know Sean went and talked to him as well at that live pod as well that they did with Matt Barnes, Steven Jackson, and 50 Cent to be in the building, for E40 to be in the building, for Floyd Mayweather to be in the building. Like, all of this to happen at the same time, a great atmosphere from the fan base and everything it just completes the atmosphere. Ironically, I think the person I was most excited to see was probably E40, just because it's, I don't know, somebody that I knew of growing up and had a somewhat sense of appreciation for his music and everything growing up in the Bay Area. So probably E40, ironically. Seeing Floyd was cool. It's the first time I feel like I've seen Floyd. But yeah, it just adds to it. Did you have a favorite, James? Oh, also, Paige's son, is it Andrej?
Andre. No, Andre.
Andre?
There's a J on the back, but it's silent. Andre Stojakovic. Yeah.
I should have known. Him wearing a red velvet shirt was hilarious on the same day that Kevin walks in with a shirt that says, "I feel like Peja." And so them sort of exchanging some appreciation was a fun moment too.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to say, out of all of that you guys talked about, first of all, I've never met Jason Williams. I don't know why. Like that might be the one guy
tell you why.
I have. Well, because he's quiet and doesn't do media and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, basically. I mean, he hasn't come back a lot. When he does, it's very quiet. They don't. He's not going to make a lot of mentions of it, and he's a very nice guy who loves interacting with people for the most part. I think he treats them with respect, but not a guy who's going to seek out the spotlight.
Yeah,
never was.
He
hated
very
the
introverted, very introverted. So
I just found out he was a high school teammate with Randy Moss. You guys probably knew this, but that was
goodness.
news to me.
Brenden, where the
He was their
did you know the
quarter- he
Beatles
was his
fucking grew up,
quarterback.
buddy? you know they broke up, man. God, Brenden.
Yeah, that is like the greatest high school football tandem of all time. You should also,
Brenden,
like,
do you know who Michael Jordan is?
yeah, and
Same guy.
Jimmer Fredette had caught almost 1,400 yards as a wide receiver in high school. And I think one of the best wide receivers we've ever had, one of the best football players we've ever had in Sacramento was Willie Cauley-Stein. Google Willie Cauley-Stein high school football and watch the YouTube videos of a 7'1" guy running through all of these small people. So I'll get back to it. I was really happy for Peja to walk back in the door because, like, things happen. And when you accept a job to be an assistant general manager with a franchise that you were the guy, you were one of the guys and thought so highly of, and then to see it go south, and how Vlade is a guy who has the ability to say, I don't care, I'm going to go back in the building and screw you guys. This is still my town and I'm going to own it. That's not who Peja is. And I don't believe, had been back in the building since he left. And he still lives in Sacramento, or he has, for the most part. His son goes to Jesuit. He's still a Sacramento guy, but he felt a certain way about the way things happened, and all that stuff when it did, and he left his job. So I was happy to see Peja walk back in the door, because he is a guy that I know. He's a guy that I've had podcasts with and done plenty of interviews with, and he's a great dude. He's a very, very nice guy, and I'm glad he was able to feel like he was okay to walk back in the building, if that makes sense. Sean,
yeah, absolutely. I absolutely know what you're talking about. And the thing that, kind of going back to the fan element too, since we're talking about some notables that are there, I can't tell you how much how fun it is, man. Like we have a job to do, and we don't get out of there until pretty late. And well, you guys don't get out there till pretty late, and then I'm even later than you are.
You are.
And yeah, and so like I just always tell you, like the beam is turned off by the time I get out of that building, so I don't really ever get to see it. I definitely don't get to see the plaza being as crowded as it is. But that said, I do kind of I go out in this town a lot, and it was really fun after game one and game two. Well, actually, I didn't go out game two, sorry, but going out after game one and seeing just certain places I like to hang out. There's you have Kings fans all over the place, just very electric, and you'd like to see some of these businesses be able to thrive from a lot of that as well. Even later in the evening, I wish I had gone out last night. I hit a wall, man. Like it was,
I think
I've
we
been
all
going
did.
out a lot, which is something that I do anyway, and it's fun to run and encounter people who not only listen to the podcast, but just really support what we do from a content standpoint and want to chat in person. And it makes me, damn it, it really makes me look forward to the moment we can do a live show one day, because I think it would be a lot of fun.
I agree. I think
James
going out, we got to wait till after the season. Like planning these
Right.
things isn't easy. Yeah, I walked up with we did like the 1320 crew walk up in pregame before game one. So me and
What does that mean?
Me and Kenny and Damien and Trista Crick walked up behind the visiting basket and walked up by the NBC set and walked up to the concourse, and we like got mobbed. Like there were people everywhere coming over, taking pictures, and it was wild to see exactly what Sean's talking about. But like bumping into Danny from England, who was in the building and was there with his son and had flown out just to see the game. There are fans from Costa Rica, fans from France that have flown out to to be here for the game, and I think it's just a really cool thing to watch a city find success for the first time in so long. It's like the Kings are such a representation of the city of Sacramento. And when things were good, they were really good. And when things went bad, like it almost feels like, the Kings go bad in 2006. And then the real estate recession starts in 2008. And you just like the whole thing just disappears. Right. And there's so much like overall failure. There's no one to pick anyone up in this really sad time. And now we're coming out of a pandemic. Everything seems to be going the right way, and watching Sacramento rise up and the fans return. And not only that, but the Kings rip their fans back from Golden State. That's been really cool to see, because I think for a long time you lost a whole generation of fans. There's a bunch of 15-year-olds that were 5 years old when the Warriors got good and have been nothing but Warriors fans in Sacramento this whole time. And I think the Kings, the way they're playing, the way that they're playing against the Warriors, they really are just like they're ripping their fans back, and it's fun to see.
Yeah, you establish your market, because that's what I would say. With how close you are in proximity to the Warriors, it's easy for people to gravitate that way based on the way they play. People like to follow greatness, and you can appreciate it. And I think even if you're a Kings fan, you can sit there and openly admire, but don't become a fan of, because everyone wants loyalty. I mean, you watch. I'm a diehard Giants fan, San Francisco Giants fan. I despise the Dodgers with everything in my heart, selfishly. I cannot cover a Dodgers team for that reason. But I will say that I admire the Dodgers a lot, in the sense that you'll ask me, I keep it real. People go to like, how the Giants? I'm like, oh, they're not good. The Dodgers are going to be the best team in baseball. This year, I think, the Padres could win the division. Dodgers will be right there. If they could get three, I know it's baseball talk, but Dodgers have been among the best teams in baseball and if not the best team in baseball for like the greater part of 5 years now.
Yeah.
And I can admit that. So I can, if you put yourself in the in the place of a Kings fan, they're saying the same thing about the Warriors. Doesn't mean you hate them. You don't have to hate them. You obviously admire, and you're going to tune in and maybe go even check out a game. But I don't think I don't think necessarily the Kings lost their fans, so to speak, because I think there is a loyalty to Kings, to this club that is very, very strong.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have, to your point, James, in the span of 17 years of people growing up, kids, these new people sprouting up and finding allegiances to it, you can be in Sacramento and go, oh, why would I root for the Kings? They're terrible. Look what the Warriors are doing. And it makes it easy for like a casual fan to become a serious fan and then get that. I still think there is this very loyal fan base with the Kings. And to your point, really establishing your market again, kind of planting that flag in the heart of the city and having something to kind of galvanize this area is really fun.
Absolutely. I haven't been around as long as you guys, obviously, but it's always been expressed to me just the extent of how much this city loves this team, and never been in question to me in the 5-6 years that I've been around here. A lot of bad teams, and the fans were still totally showing out. De'Aaron Fox will tell you as much. And now they're getting to watch some very well-deserved good postseason basketball and making it a great environment. Just the way that there's been a lack of Warriors fans in that 95-5 split or whatever it is has made for an amazing environment. And as one of you mentioned at the beginning, I'm really interested to see just how many Kings fans are at Chase Center, because it might be a lot.
I think Kevin Fippen is just like driving a bus down there with like 300 fans. Yeah. He's been a lightning rod, like putting out tickets and trying to find people to the Sacramentans that want to sell their tickets, but sell them to other Kings fans. So yeah, I think they're, it's cool. I think we're getting to see a really cool transformation here. All right, let's.
By the way, can I say something real quick? Just because
Yeah.
I know how the comment section can be. It's never funny when you can have to explain the joke, but that's sarcasm when we're giving Brenden shit for being young and explaining who the Beatles are. When he says something like Jason Williams and Randy Moss were teammates. It's like, yeah, it's pretty common knowledge for folks James and I age, but we like to give him shit when stuff like that comes up. It's all done in love. We love Brenden, so
We do.
If anybody wants to have my back, just like call you guys old on your socials, and we're all good. As long as it's a two-way street, we're all good.
What's a social?
So yeah, and I'll just like all people need to do is watch me walk from my seat to the stairs and realize that I'm not young.
Jimmy Goldstein would walk circles around you.
Jesus, like the back has been bad. All right, let's close this thing up. Do we have final thoughts? Brendon, let's go to you first.
Congrats to De'Aaron for winning the Clutch Player of the Year award. And there's a decent chance that Mike Brown winning Coach of the Year isn't far behind him.
Thursday.
That's happening. That'll happen.
And seems like it, right? And we'll see how Sacramento can fare headed into Chase Center. I don't have much.
All right.
It was brought up a minute ago for my final thoughts, but yeah, caught up with Jason Williams, Matt Barnes, the All the Smoke podcast. They did a live taping and a live show with fans there, and it was a lot of fun. And I don't know Jason Williams very well either, James, not very well at all. I didn't cover him. I got a little taste of 01. That was his final year, but the 01, 02 is my kind of my bread butter. 02 was my full year. 02, and so it was just cool to see that, because for a guy who only played 3 seasons in Sacramento and still be like the poster child for like fanship and people still wearing it. You see 55 jerseys everywhere. It was cool, and it is unfortunate because even though it was taped, Matt in our interview told me that that was just a one-off. It was for the people there only. They're not going to post the podcast. Just one of those live shows that they don't add to be able to go to consume. So good for the people that went to Urban Roots. It's a great establishment. It's a brewery and restaurant, and they had a lot of people there to hear some really, really funny stories. And I thought that when I went in there, I thought that was gonna be something that would be able to be shared on their platform or even on Showtime. and it wasn't to be. And it literally came about. This is crazy, guys. Like Matt said, like 10 days. It was even kind of less than that. And Jay Will missed like 2 or 3 flights to get out here, and so there was a little bit of a panic, but they got him there. And I think if you talk to anyone, I'm sure if people who were listening to this that were there, they'll probably put it in the comment section. They had the time of their lives to be able to celebrate a guy that they worship so much.
I was there. It was a great time.
What?
It was a great pod. I saw you walk past, and then all of a sudden, well, I'm not in the VIP room with Sean Cunningham or anything, okay? It was hard to get a hold of you.
It
was hard to get a hold of you.
I knew I had a pass, but I didn't know that was the VIP room.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, crazy.
Somebody got big time.
I'm actually.
I wasn't even allowed to look
funny.
at Sean.
I did have a pass, but I didn't know that like where the thing was. Anyway, even afterwards, where they were outside smoking, as you can imagine, it is the not Up in Smoke. It's the All the Smoke podcast. Very accessible. People, I think, really had a lot of fun out there. So, how long you didn't stay? I should have said hi. Text me. I could have probably got you.
I was there. You and Sam big time to me. Whatever. It's all good.
Man, I had to basically convince Sam to come on in.
Damn. Okay, I don't have any cool stories about Jason Williams. Let's see.
We didn't do a business of basketball guy.
We did.
Did we?
We did. We talked about our favorite person.
I'm probably still suffering from their secondhand smoke.
It's also possible that we just can't hear it all. Okay, so this is what I'll like. Okay, Brenden and Sean and I are all going to be in the Bay Area on Thursday. We'll be there Saturday and Sunday for the game. Practice on Saturday. I don't know if we're going to be there on Friday, Sean. You're going to stay down on Thursday night, right?
Yeah, I wasn't going to. I was going to come back, but looks like things are changing. So I think I'm going to.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that they're going to still practice on Friday. So I think it depends on what happens in the game. But we're going to have your coverage here. We'll be covering this team all the way through the playoffs, whatever happens, however long it goes. So if you're a fan, get out there and do some of these watch party things. Like the Kings are holding a watch party on Thursday and Sunday at Golden One Center. Tickets are free. You do have to log on and get tickets. And I think there's like a limit to how many you can get. So make sure like you and someone else that's with you goes and gets tickets so you can have like 4. But like go enjoy this. Like D'Lo and Casey, my dudes at ESPN 1320 are going to have watch parties. They've got one coming up out at the new casino in Elk Grove. They've got another one coming up somewhere else downtown. So get out there and like be part of this. Like enjoy this ride because you just spent 16 years realizing that these things don't come around all that often, and sometimes you never know what will happen the next year. So go out and embrace this and have a good time and enjoy this run and be out there with Kings fans. Have a good time. Don't get in trouble. Don't get in a fight with E40. Everyone calm down. Like just
enjoy,
like just have a good time. So
I have one other thing.
Oh, here we go.
The shirt you're wearing, James.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I am wearing. This is from my dude Jim at Brickhouse Industries. Go to his Twitter handle and you can find this playoff shirt. I can wear this playoff shirt because it doesn't have any like real allegiance to it. It's got 2 bridges. It doesn't say "Go Kings" or anything like that. But yeah, it's the NorCal Playoff Series shirt. He's an incredible designer and does all of our stuff here at the Kings Beat, and just a really good dude. So go hit up his Twitter account and you can find out where to buy these shirts and go get yourself some cool playoff merch. They are not Kings Beat; they're just regular everyday playoff merch. And they're Brickhouse Industry playoff merch. So good catch.
And thank you. You said it's Jim,
it's
right?
Jim.
His name's Jim.
Yeah, Jim Espinoza.
Thank you, Jim, for having consideration for the big fellas like myself being able to get one of them shirts. It was pretty nice.
Yeah, Brennan, myself, and Sean all got one of these cool shirts, and so go pick up one, and it seems to be good luck. I don't know what it is. This team keeps winning, and we're confused, and we have no idea what's happening. Okay, so we're going to wrap this thing up, but if you're still watching on YouTube, this was not supposed to be a long show. Somehow ended up being almost 2 hours. Give us a
Kings
thumbs.
beat episode.
Yeah, it happens. Give us a thumbs up. Subscribe if you don't mind. That would be really cool. Also, jump on board with the Kings Beat. Go to thekingsbeat.com and become a premium subscriber. So you get invited to all of the cool things like happy hours and all of the content that we produce on a almost daily basis here at the Kings Beat. So that's going to do it for this edition of the Kings Beat podcast. For Fox 40, Sean Cunningham, and Brenden Nunes from the Kings Pulse podcast. I am James Ham, Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. See you later this week.